Welcome to True Crime Repo. Today, we're tackling a story you think you know. I mean, we've all heard the phrase drinking the Kool-Aid. But what really happened? Well, it's so much more complex and honestly a whole lot more terrifying than the myth.
918. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the number of Americans who died in a single day, November 18th, 1978. Now, to give you some perspective, that was the largest loss of American civilian life in one deliberate act until 9/11. And this didn't happen in some war zone. This happened in a tiny, remote settlement deep in the jungles of Guyana.
So, the big question is, how? How on earth did this happen? How did hundreds of people, including nearly 300 children, end up dead in the middle of nowhere? Well, to understand the end of this story, you have to go right back to the beginning, back to a promise of a paradise that just seemed way too good to be true. Okay, let's start right there, because the People's Temple didn't begin as this engine of tragedy. Not at all. It started with a really beautiful, powerful promise that attracted thousands of people who were just looking for a better world. You've got to remember, back in the 1970s, America was a really divided country, and Jim Jones, he offered something that felt totally revolutionary, a real community, fighting for racial equality, feeding hungry people, and promising to build this socialist paradise right here on Earth, a place completely free from all the injustice of the outside world. And it's so important to understand who was drawn to this message. Take a look at this. 70% of the people in Jonestown were African American. A full third of them were kids, and another third were senior citizens. I mean, these were people who had been let down by society over and over again. They desperately wanted to believe in a better world for themselves and for their families. These people weren't fools, not at all. They were idealists. You know, Jim Jones's own wife, Marceline, said it best. They were there to build a brand new society from the ground up. They traveled thousands of miles to this remote settlement in Guyana, truly believing they were creating a perfect world. But once they got to Jonestown, that dream of paradise, it started to twist into an absolute nightmare. And this didn't happen by accident. Oh no. It was the result of a very specific, systematic playbook of psychological abuse. You know, experts have a name for this. It's called coercive control. And it's this terrifying process where a person's freedom, even their own sense of reality, is just slowly stripped away, piece by piece. It's kind of like that story about boiling a frog, right? The heat is turned up so gradually that the frog doesn't realize it's in mortal danger until it's way too late. And Jones's playbook for this had 4 just devastatingly effective steps. First, he would isolate everyone. Move them to a remote jungle, cut off all contact with the outside world. Next, he'd manipulate them. Non-stop propaganda blaring from loudspeakers, public humiliations. Then he'd regulate every single part of their lives. And finally, he would intimidate them with brutal punishments and these terrifying rehearsals for mass suicide he called White Nights.
So here's the thing you have to understand. Jonestown wasn't a community. It was a prison disguised as a paradise. There were armed guards patrolling the perimeter, but they weren't there to keep outsiders away. They were there to keep everyone inside.
And this slide right here, it really shows you the science behind it all. A study of cult survivors found that, yeah, intimidation is a powerful tool, but it's the constant, day-to-day micro-regulation, controlling every little thing, that's used most often to just break a person's will. It grinds you down until you literally can't even think for yourself anymore.
So by November of 1978, this psychological pressure cooker was just at its absolute breaking point. And a visit from the outside world, well, that would become the spark that lit the final catastrophic fire. A U.S. congressman named Leo Ryan flew down to Jonestown to investigate all these claims of abuse. While he was there, desperate members were secretly passing him little notes, begging for help. The very next day, as Ryan tried to leave with 15 people who wanted out, Jones's guards ambushed them on the airstrip. They murdered the congressman and 4 other people. That was it. The point of no return had been crossed.
With a U.S. congressman dead, Jones knew the outside world was coming for them. He gathered everyone together, and in this chilling recording we now call the death tape, he announced that it was all over. But he didn't call for surrender. No. He called for what he termed a revolutionary suicide. But here's the thing. For so many, this was not a choice. The word suicide just doesn't fit the facts. The evidence points to a straight-up massacre. The babies and children were poisoned first, their parents forced to watch. Armed guards surrounded the whole place with orders to shoot anyone who tried to run.
And eyewitnesses reported that dozens of people were actually injected with poison completely against their will.
After it was all over, the world just struggled to understand how something so awful could have happened. And we were left with these myths and that chilling phrase that completely obscures what really happened that day.
This is why it is so important to separate the myth from the reality. First off, a small detail, but it matters. It wasn't Kool-Aid. It was a generic brand called Flavor Aid. But way more importantly, this wasn't about blind faith. It was the end result of years of coercive control. And for hundreds of people, it wasn't a choice. It was murder. The victims were not crazy. They were good people, idealists, who had been systematically broken and trapped in an absolute nightmare. And the man who orchestrated this whole tragedy, the man who demanded revolutionary suicide from every single one of his followers, Jim Jones didn't drink the poison. He was found with a gunshot wound to the head. And to this day, the official manner of his death is still listed as undetermined. You see, this story of Jonestown is so much more than just a shocking headline from the past. It's this timeless, terrifying warning about the power of charisma, the danger of isolation, and how that deep human need we all have for a better world can be twisted into a weapon of total control. Thanks for joining us at True Crime Repo. If you want to understand the real truth behind the headlines, make sure you subscribe for more deep dives like this one.